Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The vibes are immaculate in Indianapolis with the Pacers cruising into the conference finals. Also, can the Wolves defense slow down the Thunder's roll? And the Fever are red hot to start the season with Caitlin Clark at the helm.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It is a beautiful time to be an Indiana professional basketball fan. The Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the WNBA team, the Indiana Fever, led by the most recognizable, the most famous player in women's basketball maybe ever, Caitlin Clark. Tony East, our pal from Locked On Pacers, covers both teams. He joins me now. And Tony, we saw the Pacers at Fever games. We've seen Caitlin Clark at Pacers playoff games. There's a synergy here. Like, what the vibes are immaculate right now.
Yeah, who's the first person Caitlin Clark goes to after the game ends? Well, it was actually her boyfriend, but then it was Tyrese Halliburton standing right next to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was an assistant for the Pacers last year. They're friends. They sit by each other. Like, there's a lot of connection between these teams. They share an arena. The practice facility for the Pacers is right next door. It's so easy for them to kind of create this environment where they can support each other. It helps that they're both ascending at the same time, right? 2 years ago, neither of them were that great. Now they're both very good and have chances to make some noise, as the Pacers currently are, and the Fever hope to do this year. And my favorite thing about that synergy is how similar they play, right? They both have a point guard who is, unique in that they can shoot and pass and score like better than almost anyone at their position in their league. And so there's a lot of like, they should get up-tempo shooters on their team kind of stuff going on for both groups. And so if you buy a ticket to a random professional basketball game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, you know exactly what style you're going to see regardless of which team is actually on the floor.
And those buildings, they get loud. And the Fever games have been louder and louder and louder because you cannot get a ticket to those games right now. Caitlin Clark starts off with 2010 and 10, and you got the Pacers. They're in the Eastern Finals right now. Let's dig into that a little bit here, because it's a Knicks Pacers matchup that I'm not sure anyone. Well, maybe people did predict that one, but that was certainly not the favorite coming into this Eastern Conference race. Handicap this a little bit for us. What is a matchup you have your eye on here?
And I mean, the stars are like easy to get to right in this one because they play similar to / the same position, Brunson and Halliburton at the point guard spots. They had their little WWE fake spat last year, even though they're really good friends from like Team USA and stuff like that. And, Siakam and Karl Towns in the front court's going to be fun. I don't think any of these players are going to be guarding each other, but the fact that it's like the overlap of one guard, one front court player for each team is interesting. I honestly think the most fascinating thing about the series is how differently these teams try to use their resources. Like the Knicks really want to play slow. They were 26th in pace. They use two bench players and like a third one sometimes gets on the floor and like, oh, look, there's campaign. Like you just never really see them. Whereas the Pacers are extremely fast, known for it. It's in the name Pacer, and they play 10, 11 guys in playoff games. And so the clash of styles and the history of this series is what's going to make it so fun to me to see what wins out, right? And I think that those star matchups will dictate it. If Halliburton is scoring and his team is playing well, they're going to be able to set the terms of engagement. The game will be faster. The Knicks will be uncomfortable. If Brunson and Cat are the ones scoring like crazy, it'll be a slower game. The Knicks can set their defense and make the Pacers work. I think that means it's going to be tough for me to imagine it's a short series because these style clashes are always like that, where there's a lot of tug of war going on. But while there's a ton of fun little individual matchups around the series, I think these teams just play so differently, and that'll be really fun.
You can stay up to date all year on the Indiana Pacers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Pacers on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Thunder barely made it out alive after a fierce battle with the Nuggets. What do the Wolves have in store for them? Before we get to that, the 49ers are wrapping up their offseason moves as they try and shift to a new title contending window. The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, From three-pointers to steals to assists, there's just so many ways to bet on your favorite games, your favorite players. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You can place your first $5 bet on, say, Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers, who are 4.5-point underdogs at the Garden later tonight. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. The 49ers are locking up the heart of their defense and their offseason business with a fresh deal for Fred Warner. The All-Pro linebacker agreed to a 3-year, $63 million extension that vaults him back to the top of the off-ball linebacker market at $21 million per year. It's a cap-friendly move that adds $56 million in guarantees and ensures San Francisco's defensive anchor isn't going anywhere soon. With extensions now complete to Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Warner, the Niners are entering OTAs with their stars signed, sealed, and ready to redeem last season's stumble. More on this with Brian Peacock coming up. Over in Major League Baseball, the Reds look to push their win streak to 5 with a victory over the Pirates.
Now that is exactly what we're talking about. When we're talking about the Reds playing against a team that they should beat, that's how they should play. The way that they just beat the Pirates 7-1 by doing everything right. All facets of the game, they were doing fantastic, and that's what we're talking about. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast. Nick Lodolo was awesome. The bullpen that really didn't have anybody from the A squad available was awesome. And the lineup did everything it needed to do. Constant, timely hits. It wasn't all one big inning that they just held on for dear life to. It was a lot of runs here, there, and everywhere. And then they added on late in the game against the Pirates bullpen. And the fielding, oh my gosh, the fielding looked really good. That was a complete performance and exactly what you should do against a team like the Pirates. Now the Reds need to do what they should do against the Pirates and win the series tomorrow.
The Orioles' misfortunes just won't end. This time against the Brewers.
The up and down season offensively, mostly down, continues for the Milwaukee Brewers. But they had an up day on Monday. Good to have you along, Chuck Freeman. Instant reaction, Locked On Brewers. Led by William Contreras, the Brewers had 11 hits, but William Contreras, a season-high 4 hits. With those 4 hits, he raised his batting average some 20 points tonight, and no hit bigger than what he did in the 8th inning. 4-4 tie, RBI single, drives in Terang, and the Brewers able to hold on in the 9th inning behind McGill and get the job done. But what about Contreras? Playing with the broken hand, going out there. When he's not catching, you got to keep him in the lineup as the DH. He's not taking any days off. No days off for our guy, William Contreras, a gamer. Even when the Brewers are struggling, he can say, yeah, I want a day off. He's out there every game. We saw this from him last year when they were in first place, and now they're in 4th place. He still doesn't want a day off. We'll talk to you a little bit later on tonight on the next edition of Locked On Brewers. Please subscribe.
And the Marlins try to keep up with the Cubs offense.
Pure joy. The Marlins walk off the Cubs in the bottom of the 9th. It's Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins. That was an absolute classic of a game. It was back and forth. The Marlins jumped to an early lead. The Cubs came right back, and it was 7-6 heading into the bottom of the 9th, and 2 quick outs. The Cubs had a reliever, Palencia. He's throwing 101 miles an hour, strikes out Norby. Liam Hicks gets out, and they're down to their final out. Derek Hill comes to the plate, rips a double to right field. Okay, now I'm locked in a little bit. All right, there's a runner on second, 2 outs, down by 1. Maybe we can tie it up. And then Javier Sanoja draws a walk. He doesn't chase, pitches at the bottom of the zone. And then Jesus Sanchez. What a game from GZ tonight. He had 3 hits, hit a homer, and then rips a double down the right field line. I jump up, I'm yelling, let's go. Marlins walk it off. Let's go, baby. Check out Locked On Marlins for more.
While we watched Game 7 between the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves were just waiting for whoever it was going to be with a quick turnaround. And now the Thunder have to come out and play on a Tuesday night after playing on a Sunday afternoon. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves haven't played since last Wednesday, almost a week off in between these games. Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves joins me now. And Ben, we were chatting before we came on air here that this happened to the Timberwolves last round, and they lost game 1 against a Warriors team that had just gone through a grueling 7-game series. So what do we make of whatever advantage the rest versus rust question is going to bring?
It's a great question. I actually think it does hurt. And of course, now I'm going to say this because this happened to the Wolves a couple weeks ago, but I think it does hurt the team that didn't have the game 7 2 days prior. And in the Thunder's case, it was a blowout win. So like, it's not like those guys were playing hard in the fourth quarter.
Right.
So, they got to play. They're fresh in the sense that they haven't been sitting around doing nothing, but they didn't have to play overtime in a game 7 2 days prior. And on the Wolves side, like I think over the course of the series, perhaps it's an advantage for Minnesota because this series is literally every other day. So if you go backwards for what the Thunder just went through against Denver, I mean, they've been playing now every other day for a couple of weeks, which is even more than you do in the regular season. As crazy as that is, you occasionally get a 2-day break in the regular season. So over the course of 5, 6, maybe 7 games, it might catch up to the Thunder a little bit. I don't know that it necessarily favors the Wolves a ton on Tuesday because, like you said, they threw up a bunch of bricks a couple weeks ago in game 1 against Golden State.
And now they're going to face the best defense, maybe ever. Some of the statistics suggest that that's what it is. This Thunder team by point differential and some of the advanced numbers, one of the best teams we've seen lately. So matchups wise, if you're going to build the case for the Timberwolves, what does that case look like in this series?
Yeah, I mean, OKC, like breaking down their profile defensively, they're a fantastic defense. Like you said, the best in the league, one of the best in history. They do give up a lot of corner threes. Minnesota shoots a lot of corner threes, and they've got a lot of really good three-point shooters. Last season, Minnesota was number 1 in the league in three-point percentage. This year, they were 5th or 6th, I think, when it was all said and done. And they've got a lot of guys who are good corner three-point shooters, and OKC kind of lived and died with that last year. And ultimately, Dallas got hot in the second round and beat a really good Thunder team last season. Can the Wolves do that this year? And like, it's going to be more than just getting hot from the corners, but like, that's one way. Like, you have to give up something in the NBA, and that's the Thunder pack the paint. They try and prevent teams from they try and cut off driving lanes. They don't want teams to get to the rim. They've got a pretty good rim protector when he's on the floor, and Chet Holmgren. Like, they are really, really, really good. And the one thing they do is they allow 3-point shots, and they're pretty good at contesting them. Their opponent 3-point percentage against isn't actually that crazy for how many threes they allow to be shot, because they're really good at closing out as well. So the Wolves are a pretty streaky team. We saw that game 1 against, I think it was the Lakers series. They were like 51% from 3. And then game 5 against the Lakers, game 1 against the Warriors, they were like 15% from 3, literally. So there's going to be a bit of a, give and take there. But I think for Minnesota, if Ant can at least get into the teeth of the defense, make the right choices, and then they've got guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid that are good, Mike Conley, who are really good corner 3-point shooters. There's an opportunity. And also Minnesota's got to slow the game down. OKC loves to get out in transition. They turn teams over defensively more than any other team in the NBA. And Minnesota's prone to turnovers. So Minnesota has to slow the game down, score in the half court, albeit against a really good set defense. But you'd rather do that than turn the ball over, push the pace, allow too many possessions for OKC, and get beat on the other end of the floor. So I think it's slowing the game down, and it's trying to generate some of those open 3-point attempts. And then you just got to make those open attempts.
Yeah, and we saw last year, Dallas, you mentioned, it was PJ Washington getting hot, but also being left open. I mean, he had plenty of open looks in the corner. If you're going to identify one guy and go, hey, if this guy does the PJ Washington for the Wolves, that's the key to beating this version of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think it's Jaden McDaniels. You could say Naz Reid, because the ceiling of Naz's offensive game is legit, and he had to start actually 3 of the 4 regular season matchups between OKC and Minnesota. There was no Julius Randle and no Rudy Gobert, so you can't glean a whole lot from that. But McDaniels Naz was great in those games. I think the ceiling of what Naz can do is higher. But Jaden McDaniels is going to have the opportunity every night as a starter and as the primary defender on SGA. Like, on that end of the floor, he's got to stay on the floor. He can't get into foul trouble consistently. He can't get drawn into the web with SGA. And then on offense, he's the guy the Thunder are most likely to leave open. Nobody's trying to leave Naz Reid open, and teams will dare Jaden McDaniels to beat them. And McDaniels has been doing a great job in the playoffs so far. He's been really a true kind of third option with that starting lineup. And I never would have said that, going back 2+ months at any point in Jaden McDaniels' career, but he's shown real growth to not just let it fly, not just catch and shoot, but really take a pause and be like, all right, could I put this on the floor and get to the basket? I'm longer and more athletic than most everybody out there. Can I be under control and score at the rim? Can I force a defense into rotation, pass it to somebody else? He's starting to take that step. And if he's consistent and shows that growth in this series, I think he could be the real X factor for the Wolves on both ends of the floor, but especially on offense, because again, you kind of have to give something up. And if you're the Thunder, are you going to leave McDaniels open, or are you going to allow Gobert to dunk the ball, or are you going to let Ant beat you one-on-one? Like, given the options, McDaniels is the guy that that they're probably going to beat them. And I think if he plays like he has, he's got a real shot to do that and to be, make a positive impact for Minnesota.
Yeah. Stay up to date all year on the Minnesota Timberwolves by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Wolves on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up with a year under her belt, Caitlin Clark is ready to take the Indiana Fever to new heights. The Indiana Pacers aren't the only team in Indiana, and in particular the city of Indianapolis, that feels like it's ready to compete right now for a title. We continue our conversation with our pal Tony West on the Fever, and maybe more precisely, the Caitlin Clark Fever that is sweeping women's basketball over the last few years. And you mentioned how these teams, the Fever and the Pacers, have such a similar style of play. Well, the Fever spent their offseason making some changes to their personnel. They overhauled this roster. The trade for Sophie Cunningham, just sort of the tip of the iceberg here, adding Duana Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sydney Colson, Brianna Turner. And you can see it right away. The verve that they play with is Pacers-like. And that's a reflection of Caitlin Clark, right? Like, she wants to push the tempo. She wants to get the ball moving because her best trait, for as incredible of a shooter as she is her passing. And this team seems to now reflect that.
Yeah, totally. And like, it's fitting to me that Kelly Kroskov, the now president of the Fever, was a Pacers assistant GM when they had Halliburton. Like, she's seen how to build a team with that style, what players are required. The difference for the Fever is that they just had like literally no experience. Like, they got to the playoffs and they're like, whoa, wait, this is so different. They got smoked by Connecticut. And so they got good players. Obviously, Duana Bonner's great. Sophie Cunningham fits very well. Sydney Colson, they need a backup point guard, so Caitlin doesn't play 40 minutes every night like last year. Right? They needed all this stuff. Natasha Howard was very good in their opener. So that's part of it, is like good players. That helps. Like, they're a top 4 team in the league, no doubt. They needed experience and like vets. Every single player they got has played in Awana finals before, right? Like, that seems very clear in terms of what they were trying to do by doing that, in terms of like, they won't hit the playoffs and be like, wait, what's going on? There's how many people here? Like, what? The Fever are used to that part, but it's just way bigger on the stage, and they got smoked. And this year that will not happen, certainly. And they're a better team for it. And, a little bit like the Pacers, who got smoked in their first game of their first series last year. The problem is it's a best of 7 and they had time to recover. The Fever played a best of 3 and decidedly did not have time to recover from a slow start to the playoffs. But yeah, they know how to build. They know what the other team did, and they got experience, they got talent, and they got talent that fits around Caitlin. They can all shoot, they can all run. Most of them can defend. They should be very good. They're hoping they can knock on the door of some of the greats.
Well, and I wanted to ask you that part of it because, with all due respect to the players on the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton has been outstanding, made every clutch play in the playoffs. Caitlin Clark has a chance to grab the mantle as the best player in the league in the WNBA this season. The question is going to be, is she ready for the playoffs? As you mentioned last year, this team, as a team, they were not ready. Can she be that rising tide? Can she be that good this year where you just go, yeah, they're maybe not as talented as some of these other teams, but they have this one player where we see in basketball in all versions that can lift you sometimes.
Yeah, that's what like the Aces have really been. Like, they have a ton of stars, but like as Asia goes, they go, and she's been amazing every year. The Liberty have Stewie. Like, both of those teams have so much talent, right? Like, at the top end. Can Caitlin get the Fever to that level? We'll see, right? Like, the difference would be that she is a passer, like a masterful passer, where, those two players are better defenders than her by a mile. They play a different position. But the way that the rising tide theory would work for the Fever is that she can get everybody else going from an offensive perspective. And they have 2 other all-stars, like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, are really good. I think the hope is that by getting players that fit really well with her and a new coach that can implement a style that makes a lot of sense and has that kind of tempo, that they can really compete with those teams in terms of like just wearing them down with scoring 93 points in the home opener. Like, that's a lot of points in a 40-minute WNBA game, and they only gave up 58. I don't think their defense is going to be that good, but it looked great to start the season. Like, if they can score 93 points every night, they're going to have chances to keep up. And so I think that is their hope, is what you just said, is that Caitlin, plus her ability to set up her teammates and get them equivalently good shots to what she can create for herself, will make them good enough as a whole as some of these best teams, because on talent, Stewie and Asia, MVP candidates, and the rest of their teammates being terrific on both sides, albeit no Benigel Annie Hamilton this season. Like, those teams seem like the 2 favorites, but I think the Fever hope that they can gel and fit together in a way that makes them equal to those groups.
And finally, Frankie Louvu made his stance on the tush push clear. He's not a fan, especially after being penalized 3 times in a row trying to stop it in the NFC Championship game. With the NFL owner set to revisit the controversial play this week, the Commanders linebacker called it a cheapo play and likened it to a rugby scrum, whether it's banned or backed. One thing's for sure, if the tush push is legal, defenders better stop diving headfirst into frustration. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, which team in the Western Conference Finals can keep the vibes going in Game 1? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.